For the first 10 minutes, I'd focus on the central problem Osho believed humanity faces: unconscious living. Everything else can build from this foundation in later parts. My friends, there is a strange thing about human beings. Most people think they are awake. Their eyes are open. They walk, they talk, they work, they eat, they make plans, they worry about the future, they remember the past. And because all this activity is happening, they assume they are fully alive. But according to Osho, activity is not awareness. Movement is not consciousness. Being busy is not the same as being awake. And this misunderstanding creates almost every problem in human life. Imagine a man riding a horse at full speed. Someone standing on the road shouts, "Where are you going?" The man replies, "I don't know. Ask the horse." People laugh at the story. But if we are honest, many lives look exactly like this. People rush from one goal to another: school, career, marriage, money, status, retirement. And if you stop them for a moment and ask, "Why are you doing all this?" many have no real answer. The horse is running, society is running, the crowd is running, and they are simply running along. Osho's first message was simple: before you decide where to go, wake up. Because an unconscious journey, no matter how successful, can never bring fulfillment. Look at modern life. Most people are waiting to live. They say, "I'll be happy when I earn more." Then they earn more, and happiness moves farther away. They say, "I'll be happy when I find the right partner." Then they find someone, and new worries begin. They say, "I'll be happy when I buy a house." Then they buy a house, and spend years worrying about payments and maintenance. The mind always postpones life, always. Tomorrow, next month, next year, after success, after achievement, after recognition. But tomorrow has a strange habit: it never arrives. When tomorrow comes, it becomes today, and the mind creates another tomorrow. Years pass this way, entire lives pass this way, and people realize they spent their lives preparing to live without ever truly living. There is a famous story. A wealthy businessman spent decades building an empire. He worked day and night, ignored his health, ignored his family, ignored his own happiness. Eventually, he became incredibly successful. People admired him, respected him, envied him. Then one day his doctor delivered shocking news: "You don't have much time left." The businessman was devastated. Not because he was dying. Everyone dies. He was devastated because he suddenly realized something. He had postponed life for so long that life was almost over. He had prepared for tomorrow his entire life, but he had never entered today. Osho wanted people to understand that life is not somewhere in the future. Life is happening now, at this very moment, not later, not someday, not when conditions become perfect. Now. One of the reasons people remain unconscious is because they are constantly distracted. The mind jumps everywhere, into memories, into worries, into fantasies, into regrets, into fears. Very rarely does it stay here, and because the mind is never here, people miss life. A beautiful sunset appears. But the mind is worrying about tomorrow's meeting. A child laughs, but the mind is replaying yesterday's argument. A delicious meal is served, but the mind is planning next week's schedule. The moment is present, but the person is absent. Osho believed this absence is the real tragedy of human life. There is an old Zen story. A student asked a master, "What is enlightenment?" The master replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The student laughed. "Everyone does that." The master shook his head. "No. When eating, people think. When sleeping, people worry. When walking, people daydream. When listening, they prepare their reply. Very few people simply eat when eating. Very few people simply sleep when sleeping." This is awareness, being totally present in what is happening. Nothing more, nothing less. Osho often said that awareness is like light. Imagine entering a dark room. For 100 years, the room has been dark. Now you bring in a candle. What happens? Do you fight the darkness? Do you wrestle with it? Do you argue with it? No. The moment light enters, darkness disappears. Awareness works the same way. People ask, how do I get rid of anger? How do I get rid of jealousy? How do I get rid of fear? Osho's answer was surprising. Don't fight them directly. Bring awareness. Watch them, observe them, understand them. The more awareness enters, the less unconsciousness remains, and many problems begin to dissolve naturally. A man once went to a psychiatrist. He said, "Doctor, I feel like nobody pays attention to me." The psychiatrist replied, "Next." The joke is funny because it exposes something true. Human beings desperately want attention, recognition, approval, importance. The ego is always hungry, always asking, do I matter? Am I respected? Am I admired? And because this hunger can never be fully satisfied, people remain restless. One compliment makes them happy for 5 minutes. One criticism ruins their day. Their emotional life becomes dependent on the opinions of others. Osho saw this as a form of slavery, because the moment your happiness depends on someone else's approval, you are no longer free. Awareness begins to change this. The aware person starts observing the ego, observing its endless demands, observing its endless need for recognition, and through observation, distance appears. For the first time you realize, I have an ego, but I am not the ego. This is a revolutionary discovery, because once you stop identifying with every thought, every emotion, every desire, something changes. You become the watcher, the witness, the observer, and in that witnessing, freedom begins. Osho was not asking people to become saints. He was not asking people to escape the world. He was not asking people to reject life. In fact, he loved life deeply. He loved laughter, music, dance, love, creativity, celebration. But he wanted people to experience these things consciously, because unconscious pleasure eventually becomes suffering. Conscious living becomes joy. That is the difference. And perhaps that is where we should pause for today, because before we can understand love, freedom, meditation, success, fear, or death, we must understand this first principle. Wake up, become aware, watch your mind, watch your habits, watch your reactions, watch your life. Because according to Osho, transformation does not begin when you become someone else. Transformation begins the moment you start seeing clearly who you already are. And that single act of awareness may be the beginning of everything. Part 2, the ego, fear, and the prison we build ourselves, continues naturally from part 1. So if awareness is the key, then we must ask another question. What exactly keeps people asleep? Why is awareness so rare? Why do intelligent people continue making the same mistakes again and again? According to Osho, one of the biggest obstacles is the ego. Now, when people hear the word ego, they often imagine a proud person. A person who boasts, a person who constantly talks about themselves. But Osho meant something deeper. The ego is not just pride. The ego is the false image you carry about yourself. It is the mask, the identity, the story, the collection of labels you have gathered throughout life. You say, I am successful, I am a failure, I am important, I am ordinary, I am this, I am that. And slowly these labels become a prison. You forget that they are descriptions. You begin believing they are who you are. Imagine an actor playing the role of a king. He wears beautiful clothes, a golden crown. People bow before him. Now imagine the actor becomes so absorbed in the role that he forgets he is an actor. He starts believing he is actually the king. This is what happens to human beings. We become so identified with our roles that we forget our deeper nature. Someone becomes a businessman, someone becomes a teacher, someone becomes a parent, someone becomes a celebrity, and eventually they confuse the role with the self. Osho wanted people to remember, you play many roles, but you are not the role. You are the awareness behind the role. There is a story about a lion cub. One day, a lion cub became separated from its family. It was found by a flock of sheep. The sheep raised it as one of their own. The lion ate grass, walked like a sheep, behaved like a sheep, and whenever danger appeared, it ran with the flock. Years passed. Then one day, an old lion saw this strange sight. A lion acting like a sheep. The old lion chased the flock and caught the young lion. The young lion trembled with fear. The old lion dragged him to a lake. Look, the young lion looked into the water. For the first time, he saw his reflection beside the reflection of the old lion. They were the same. Suddenly, something awakened, a deep recognition. The sheep had never changed his nature. They had only influenced his behavior. Osho loved stories like this because he believed humanity suffers from the same problem. People have forgotten their true nature. They have accepted society's description of who they are, and because of that, they live far below their potential. This brings us to fear. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in human life. People fear rejection. People fear failure. People fear embarrassment. People fear loneliness. People fear uncertainty. And because of these fears, they remain trapped. A man dreams of starting a business. Fear stops him. A woman dreams of expressing her creativity. Fear stops her. Someone wants to speak honestly. Fear stops them. Years pass, opportunities disappear, life moves on, and the prison remains intact. The strange thing is that most prisons are invisible. The bars exist only in the mind. A teacher once drew a line on the floor. He asked his students, "How can you make this line shorter without touching it?" The students became confused. Then one student walked forward and drew a longer line beside it. Instantly, the first line appeared shorter. The teacher smiled. Many people spend their lives comparing themselves to others. Someone is richer, someone is more attractive, someone is more successful, someone is more talented, and comparison creates suffering. Osho often said that comparison is poison, because the moment you compare yourself to another person, you stop appreciating your own uniqueness. A rose does not compare itself to a lotus. A lotus does not compare itself to a sunflower. Each flower blooms according to its own nature. Only human beings torture themselves through comparison. Think about social approval. How much of your life is influenced by what others think? Many people choose careers based on approval, relationships based on approval, clothes based on approval, opinions based on approval. Entire lives are built around the expectations of others. Then one day they wake up and realize something shocking. They have lived someone else's life, not their own. Osho encouraged people to be authentic, not rebellious for the sake of rebellion, not different for the sake of being different. Authentic, true, real. Because truth brings freedom, pretending brings exhaustion. There is a funny story. A man visited a psychiatrist. He said, "Doctor, my brother thinks he is a chicken." The psychiatrist asked, "Why don't you bring him in for treatment?" The man replied, "I would, but I need the eggs." People laughed because they recognized the absurdity. But Osho used jokes like this to point out something important. Many people complain about their problems, yet secretly, they depend on those problems. They complain about stress, but their identity depends on being busy. They complain about drama, but their lives revolve around it. They complain about suffering, but they continue feeding the habits that create it. Awareness reveals these contradictions. Another thing Osho observed was that people are terrified of being alone. Notice the difference. Not lonely, alone. Loneliness is painful. Aloneness is beautiful. Loneliness says, "I need someone because I feel incomplete." Aloneness says, "I am complete even when nobody is around." Osho believed that a person who cannot enjoy their own company will eventually make relationships difficult, because they will approach others from need rather than love. They will seek rescue rather than connection. They will seek completion rather than companionship. Imagine two beggars meeting on a road. Each is hoping the other has money. Can either one become rich through that meeting? Of course not. Yet many relationships begin exactly this way. Two emotionally hungry people hoping the other person will remove their emptiness. And when that impossible expectation fails, conflict begins. Osho taught that love becomes beautiful when it comes from fullness rather than need. When two complete people share their lives, love becomes a celebration. When two incomplete people cling to each other, love often becomes a struggle. Fear also affects ambition. Many people chase success not because they love success. They chase success because they fear failure. They fear being nobody. They fear being ordinary. They fear judgment. So they run and run and run. But no amount of achievement can solve a fear-based life, because fear simply creates another goal, another mountain, another destination, another reason to postpone happiness. Osho often pointed out that success without awareness creates emptiness. You can climb the ladder, reach the top, and discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. This is why awareness is so important. Awareness helps you see your motivations clearly. Why am I doing this? Why do I want this? Is this truly my desire? Or is it someone else's expectation? For the first time, life becomes conscious rather than automatic. A wise man once said, "The greatest freedom is not freedom from others. It is freedom from your own unconsciousness." Osho would have agreed, because the real prison is not outside. The walls are made of fear. The bars are made of conditioning. The locks are made of ignorance. And awareness is the key. So before we move into love, meditation, happiness, and deeper spiritual questions in the next part, remember this: you are not your labels, you are not your reputation, you are not your fears, you are not your successes, you are not your failures. All these things come and go, the witness remains, the awareness remains, and the more deeply you discover that awareness, the more freedom enters your life. Because the moment you begin seeing the prison clearly, the door has already begun to open. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending a part of your valuable time with this video. If this video made you think, awakened even a little more awareness within you, or inspired you in any way, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and sharing it with someone who may benefit from these ideas. Remember, sometimes a single moment of awareness is enough to change the direction of a life. I'll see you again on another journey with new insights, new stories, and a deeper understanding of ourselves. Until then, stay aware, stay present, and keep living life consciously. Thank you for watching.